Okay, wrestling fans, welcome to another episode of Wrestler Weekly Conversations. Remember, you can find us at Wrestler Weekly, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Don't forget to get the book Family Bacon Wrestling by the CEO himself, Scotty Richardson. And also, you're watching this on YouTube right now. You've subscribed to our channel. Hopefully, you're enjoying the content and the great interviews we've had this season. Season 3, just getting better and better. We have a man who is well admired and well respected in the world, in the collector's world, a former referee, NWA, he was referee of the year a couple of times, has reffed NWA world title matches amongst others, a tremendous collector. You might know him as the Belt Pope or Super Dave in another way, but today they know him as Pondwater Dave. You can catch him all over. Just if you're not following Dave Miller on social media and you're a wrestling fan, you love belts, you love classic wrestling, you are missing out. So I'd like to introduce Pondwater Dave himself, Dave Miller, coming at you live here, Wrestler Weekly Conversations. Thanks for hanging out, Dave.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm looking forward to talking wrestling with you.
Well, I love it. Well, as you guys can see in the background there, Dave has a beautiful setup. We see some of the UWF belts there. The old Southwest, the hide made out of the cowhide. We got the Brass Knucks, was that Texas Brass Knucks Championship, and yes, old Mid-South North American among the many that Dave owns. And I first, Dave, stumbled upon your collection when I used to surf. Oh, and the old Mid-South North American belt, that big beauty up there as well. So you'll be able to see those in the background among some great photos and collectibles that Dave has. But Dave, I first saw your collection and started to know who you were probably about 10, 15 years ago. I love belts, and I was looking through the galleries on Dave Milliken's site. Super Dave adds to the WCCW collection. And I would look, and there's this great photo of you sprawled out on a blanket covered with belts. One of the great photos, but I looked at that and I said, man, like that right there is what it's all about. So tell me about your love for belts, how you got into belts, and maybe what were some of the belts that made you go, man, I want to collect these things.
Well, I always liked the belts. When I was a kid watching wrestling, I just always thought the belts were really neat. But the one that got my attention was they used to do a wrestler album. It was advertised in all the wrestling magazines.
Yeah, like Wrestling Album number 5 or whatever. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And there was a picture of Ricky Steamboat holding the Mid-Atlantic belt. And that bright white belt just stood out and got my attention. So that was the one that's like, man, that is just a really cool belt. And then I enjoyed getting to see all the other ones. Well, fast forward to the late 90s, and just by accident, I discovered that there was a belt collecting group in Yahoo.
Okay.
The Yahoo belt group. And I joined that and come to find out that you could actually collect wrestling belts. And, but my favorite, was when World Class revamped there. See, they used to have one belt did everything.
I remember that. Yeah.
It was the American belt
one. Yeah.
Sometimes
it was the American title. It was the Texas title, right? It was the tag team title.
Oh yeah. It was one belt for everything.
Yeah.
But then in 84, they introduced the new belt. You had the new Texas belt.
Yeah.
The tag belts, the
American belt.
Right? The American belt. I loved it. And then they finally came up with 6-man belts. They retired the trophy.
Yeah.
So I thought they were really cool. Well, then we got cable, and you could see that brightly colored television belt on WTBS. And then there was the national belt with Paul Orndorff.
The red, white, and blue.
Then Crockett took over and brought it to another level. And then they have a TV belt that looks like my American belt that I grew up with. So and then of course the big gold and
tremendous.
If you were a belt mark, Crockett was for you, and the WWF was even doing it.
Oh yeah, and like we did, Scotty and I a few months ago. the Crockett belts are my favorite era of belts. And to me, like the UWF belts, and I love that they're in the background there, you know, with them unifying, you know, the TV titles, right? Dr. Death defending the, you know, the title at Starrcade, even though, you know, I could go on for days on how I would have done the UWF crossover differently, but that's another story for another day. But I was like, those belts fit into that. And they were just, I mean, so many great, but the thing that stood out for me about the Crockett was the old Clash of the Champions intro, right? Where they were doing the lightning bolts on all the different belts, right? And I was like, I was hooked. That was what got me with belts, was those Jim Crockett Promotions belts.
Yeah, the main event show, it would go around the ring and there'd be a belt on each. The ropes would run into a belt and go around to the next one.
Yeah, and
I'll tell you, that UWF TV belt, that is a wasted design on a television title.
Yeah.
That is the nicest belt probably ever made by any promotion.
Well, and I love belts with a lot of plates, but I also love, and to me, Mid-South, because you see a common theme in those UWF belts, kind of the squarish and rectangular main plate. But I love how on that TV belt, it has the 3 side plates on each side, but they all fit. Like if you put it together, it would make one big plate, you know?
Yes.
Just those intricacies I always found, but that is to me one of the best looking belts. And even too, like you look at the tag team, I know it has like the little design on the top, but if you took that away, it would look very similar to the other ones, you know, in shape of the main plate. And but yeah, I mean, they raised the bar in the mid 80s when it came to championship belts.
And they weren't the typical cookie cutter belts that every promotion had.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of those, the Levy design got used a lot, right? And the old, like you said, the old World Class American, those smaller plates. And those are nice belts, don't get me wrong.
Well, but every territory had them.
Yeah, everybody had them.
And then, I mean, even with the American title that World Class came out with.
Yeah.
It's the same as the Hogan 84 and the Hogan 85 and the NWA TV belt.
Yeah. Pacific Northwest had a very similar design, right? In the mid 80s.
Now, World Class was different because it had lacing on the leather.
Yes, it did. It did.
But I mean, that was one. But then they came out with the Texas belt.
Yeah, that was so unique at the time. Oh, and I think we're going to get a visual here, are we?
But you take this Texas belt and you look in all the other territories, nobody copied this one.
No. And even the design and the leather, like, I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful belt.
And that was the mood Reggie was in that day.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk about, they'll even go to WWF and talk about, well, this Winged Eagle had this leather cut, and then this one had this leather cut. Y'all are thinking way too much about it. That's the mood Reggie was in that day.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody called and said, Reggie, we want to change the leather cut because we're changing champions. No, that's just how Reggie felt like sending it.
Yeah. So, and I love that it's that simple.
It is. Because if you ask Reggie to do a belt like he did, and God rest his soul, I mean, he was such a nice man. But if you called Reggie and said, Reggie, I want you to make it exactly like you did, Reggie don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
He put the plates on leather. And how he tooled it that day, if he did a little extra, it's because he was in the mood to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you could call Dave Milliken, and Dave Milliken was historically accurate. I mean, but Dave Milliken's one of us. I mean,
yeah. He's well, that Southern belt was his. That was his belt. You know, he said that was the belt that made me fall in love with wrestling belts, you know? So yeah. But, and I think too, belts have that character, right? When they have kind of those imperfections and, you know, it adds some flavor to it. It adds some character.
Definitely.
And again, too, we see like the Southwest belts, right? You know, those tag team belts as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, those are hideous. Now I love them. I'm like, it was so unique. You know what I mean? It stood out, you know, with that cowhide and that big, you know, cut. And it was just incredible. You know, it was really cool and unique to see something different and not something that was just the same. Even that old Portland belt from the 70s, right? You know, I mean, that thing, I mean, you've never seen another belt like it. It's just this unique looking thing,
Well, and look at the one Austin Idol. If you Google Austin Idol, he's holding a belt looks like a cereal box.
Yeah.
Looks like a cereal box turned sideways. But you know that the more I look at that belt, though, the more I've come to love it over the years.
Yeah. What was that? That was like that international championship, right?
I believe so.
And and if you look too,
CWA on it.
Oh, that was a CWA belt. That's right. Yeah, it does. It's so square.
But right? I've always called it the cereal box belt.
Yeah. But even that, right? Like you look at it now, like, younger, I'm like, oh God, but you really see, I think Dave did an updated version of that. And Austin's got the belt, but it is, I mean, the leather work on, I mean, it's incredible to see the intricacies that went into a design. But yeah, I used to think it looked like a big license plate.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I just latched on to cereal box so many years ago.
I like it though. I like it. But I love
great.
I love how you said, like, as you grew and as you're like, oh yeah, like that is pretty cool, So Dave, we talk about belts, and you've held some pretty important championships above your head in the ring. I think your profile picture, you with the NWA North American title, right?
That was the NWA North American title, and that was a title defense for Bayou Independent Wrestling. Wow. That runs in Mississippi and Louisiana. January 25th. I mean, January 15th. They're going to run in Arkansas for the first time.
Oh wow!
And that will be my return to the ring as a referee.
Very nice. So I know that you had kind of taken some time here. So tell me a little bit about how you got into refereeing. And what, tell me what, the referee is the unappreciated kind of, but referees do so much. Oh, yeah. Tell me about your experience as a referee, how you got into it, why you got into it.
Well, in 1984, I went to Doug's Gym in downtown Dallas to try to become a referee. I wanted to be David Manning. I knew I was too small.
That's awesome.
I knew I was too small to be a wrestler. I want to be a referee. And you couldn't just show up and get in back then. And
yeah,
they turned me away, and I tried a couple times, and it just didn't happen. But then you fast forward, my brother was working with an independent wrestler. He wrestled by the name of Stephen Murphy for PCW in Arlington, Texas. And he worked with him, and he said, hey, Dave, there's a wrestling promotion in Arlington, Texas. We're going to go watch them Friday night because my buddy's going to wrestle. So yeah, let's go check it out. Well, when I was watching it, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you just great. Yep.
Okay, because I got a bunch of error messages on my screen. So we show up and we watch it, and I noticed that there's a lot of wrestlers that aren't much bigger than me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, they got a school, so maybe I'll give this a try, chase my dream, because I dreamed of being a wrestler when I was a kid, but I knew I was too small. But apparently that's changed in 2005.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, I start training. There was a wrestler named BJ Turner that started as my first trainer, and then BJ left, and Lance Archer, was my trainer.
Wow.
And then through a series of events, Lance realized my age. He didn't know I was as old as I was at the time. Okay. And when he found out, he didn't try to discourage me, but he wasn't there to teach me how to be a weekend hobbyist. He was trying to teach me that your path in this business that can make you some money.
Yeah.
And maybe I might consider being a referee, because there was a need for good referees. And at the time, they were doing an invasion angle, and they were looking for somebody to do a heel referee. And
that's great.
Well, that never happened. That's how they sold it to me. And then I got in there to be a referee, and never became a heel referee. But I quickly realized that I could have wrestled, and I wouldn't have been the worst guy on the card. But everybody's been to a show, and I didn't want to be that guy.
Okay.
And, I mean, there's enough bad wrestling out there, and I never want to leave. I never want to leave somebody I work for in worse shape than when I got there. Okay. So, and then I realized also as a wrestler, I'd be out there one time, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. But as a referee, I mean, if I'm the only one, I'm out there 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
All night long in the ring. And that's just being in the ring is is the greatest part. Getting to come to the ring, get up on the apron, wipe your feet off, go through the ropes, and get to be part of the action.
That's awesome.
Sometimes the crowd's happy with you. I really love it when they're not happy with you. I mean, so that was my path in, and I did it for 15 years through Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And I just got to a point where my grandkids were in the crowd, and I wanted, and that's a bond I share. Watching wrestling is something I do with my grandkids.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, they can make me, I can watch something that I don't enjoy with them, and just watching how much they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just really makes me that fan all over again. So I got to a point where I didn't want to be in the ring anymore. I wanted to be in the crowd with my grandkids.
That's awesome.
Well, and though it was awesome, it was awesome on paper.
Yeah. Then
I went and took them to a show, and I couldn't stand being in the crowd. I wanted to be back in the ring. So after 2 years, I'm done. I'm going back in the ring.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I think too, I'm sure it'll be a thrill, for your grandkids to see you doing what you do and do so well. I know that, I had seen through some of that era of, the NWA, I can remember watching title matches with like guys like Cahagas and Rob Conway and going, oh yeah, there's Dave Miller. Like I had no idea you were a referee at that point, I go, oh, get the hell out of here, and so when I connected with you on Twitter, I said, oh my gosh, I said, because I had seen, like I said, the different photos and different things. But then to know that you were a referee and how deeply involved you were. So I'm sure you must be super excited to be getting back into the ring and
I really
am doing the matches again.
I'm really excited about it. It's and I also miss, especially working for Bayou Independent Wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Knoll promotes a great I'm He always puts you six very, 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 very good matches in the ring. And I'm looking forward to getting back and hanging out in the locker room and just taking it all in, being a part of it again and getting right in the middle of it. It's going to be fun. Tim Storm, I'm really looking forward. Tim Storm is one of my favorite people to referee for. He was American. He was the North American champion at the time that picture was taken. I hate that I never got to referee while he was world champion.
Yeah.
But for him, Jack Stain was the champion when I did my NWA world title match.
Okay.
So, and that was a huge thrill to stand there with 10 pounds of gold up over my head like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Jack Stain was a good champion too.
He's an excellent champion.
I enjoyed his run and you see, the NWA championship coming back into prominence, not just one of the greatest belts of all time, but one of the most meaningful championships of all time. And I think too, people are missing out because there was some really good NWA wrestling before it kind of hit this mainstream again over the years. And I really got into it again quite a few years ago, seeing guys like Jack Stain, like Tyson Dean, and a couple of these other guys who were really solid. Cahagas, like I mentioned before, and it was good wrestling. So I consider that like a very important, the independent part of the NWA, just a very important part of their history,
Well, yeah, let's not forget their light heavyweight division. Light heavyweights.
Oh, absolutely.
You had Steve Anthony.
Yeah.
Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yeah.
Ricky Morton was in the middle of it. Chase Owens. Yeah. John Saxon.
Yeah.
I mean, they're light, and then, just Raymond Rowe was coming around when he went to Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
But there was, he's not a light heavyweight by any means, but
no, but he can move like one. Yeah.
They were, I mean, before Billy Corgan got at the NWA, they weren't dead by any means. And
no, not at all.
But it was,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was just a lot of fun, because you'd have people that would knock it, and I never did, because they said that the three letters don't mean what they used to. Yeah, but they still meant something to me, because that was my childhood. And they're all real quick to latch on to the lineage.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they don't mind telling you who was there first. So don't tell me what it used to. I mean, it may not be what it was, but it's still tied to all that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like I said, you know, to see it back in a little bit more of a mainstream form, and hopefully it's successful, you know. But yeah, there was so much good wrestling under the NWA banner for years, and it really was kind of this independent territory system, you know, where you had, you know, NWA satellites all over the country, you know, and I think that's really cool. So it's a lot more closely linked, I think, to its history than people think, more in that independent kind of thing with the different territories and the different promotions around the country. So yeah, I think you make a really solid point that, you know, it absolutely still carried a lot of weight, and it was true to kind of that traditional format.
Well, I wish them all the luck in the world. I want to see them survive. I want to see them grow.
Yeah.
I think Billy Corgan's got a good plan. They're bringing the light heavyweight title back.
Yeah.
I hate that they didn't bring Barrett Brown back as their champion, or at least have him involved in some way.
Yeah.
I don't understand the thinking, because Barrett Brown's good enough for New Japan. He ought to be good enough for the NWA.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, they've come a long way from focusing on just the world belt and the tags.
Yeah.
And they brought the national back, got the women's, and now they're bringing light heavyweight back. So that means they must have something going on that they're wanting to, you know, spread that focus out a little bit.
Absolutely.
Oh, and the television belt too. The
television title too. And I think, again, you know, I think they offer a really solid mix of different talent. Like I said, the women get a lot of focus now. Those women's tags are back, you know, and again, they really seem to embrace the lineage, but seem to also kind of embrace kind of what it would be like. Nick Aldis described it as, you know, what would Mid-South wrestling look like if it was still around today? You know what I mean? He kind of said, we want to do the classics with that little bit of modernization, but the wrestling is going to be wrestling, you know? Right. And I love that. I love that, that analogy that he used. Hey, you know, when they went back to the chase, you know, the aesthetics, he said, everything is kind of done, you know, purposely, you know, to capture a certain look. You know, so I think it's really cool to throw a fresh coat of paint and celebrate the classics, you know?
Without question. The nostalgia. I like that they play on the nostalgia, but you get me with the nostalgia, but now do something for me that's going to keep me here.
Amen.
You know, I mean, so let's, and I do like that most of their stuff takes place in the ring. And they're also a little innovative. I mean, look what they're doing with their television title. I like the concept that you have so many successful defenses and you can cash in for a world title shot.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Innovative. There's a promotion in Metroplex Wrestling.
Okay.
And right I'm going to say Arlington. Metroplex is in Euless, Bedford area, in Dallas. MPX has had a belt that's been the Prospects title. It's the same way, and it actually has plates with numbers, the removable coins on their side plates.
Oh, get out! That's cool.
Because after you go through the numbers, you can cash that belt in for a title shot at their main title.
That's great.
And they've been doing that. So to see the NWA do that with that kind of innovation, I'm not saying they stole it from MPX. I'm just saying that kind of innovation I like seeing that in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's different because I think you need things like that. Like you said, what's going to keep me? It's similar, right, to those. Remember the old Beat the Champ TV titles, right? Where you got, the $5,000, and if you defended it 5 times, and things like that are innovative. Things like that are fun. I think that again, and it makes that championship important. It makes it more than, I hate it when guys, the belts are just props. No, they're not. Like, the championships mean everything. It means more money. It means better prospects. You know what I mean? Better matches, all these things. And the fact that holding that championship, not just holding it, but defending that championship is important.
Well, good storytelling can elevate any belt. Look what John Cena did with the U.S. Championship.
Yeah.
In a very short amount of time, John Cena actually put more focus on the WWE U.S. Championship than was going on the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Every week it made it a hot commodity, And and like you said, storytelling.
That's all it is. Just put some good storytelling around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they tried it. Nick Aldis used to do, I'm the dealer, and he tried to make you jump through hoops to get a title shot. Now, I don't know that I liked all that, but I mean, to me, it was the championship committee.
Yeah.
If you're going, the NWA championship committee is going to tell you who you got to defend it against.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it was fun seeing the NWA belt featured at All In with Cody.
Yeah.
And then on the NWA 70th, I mean,
yeah.
Just so more power to them. More power to them.
They, again, seeing it and being important. And again, Nick Aldis, like I said, and Cody Rhodes, I think were the perfect guys at the perfect time, and Aldis, and I had said this to him. I said, you defended the belt in China. I said, you made this the world's heavyweight championship again, and it's so funny, right? You talk about the championship committee. I mean, take a look, right? Harley Race didn't want to wrestle Tommy Rich, but he had to, he didn't want to wrestle Ric Flair in 1983. So he put the bounty out, you've pushed me to do what I never thought I'd do. One of the great promos of all time, just take the damn money,
Yeah.
Stuff like that and it still holds up, it still holds up today.
Oh, Ric Flair did the same thing with Kerry Von Erich, put a bounty on his head, and they said it wasn't a bounty. And Gary, they found a canceled check from Ric Flair to Gary Hart, and Gary Hart said it's because I bought a station wagon from him, and then he said it was a Cadillac, and then he got caught in a lie because Cadillac didn't make a station wagon.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta love that.
But and it was great, and the players were even better, and that's the beauty of it. But simple, solid storytelling, and you bring up Gary Hart. Gary Hart, one of my favorite all-time managers, probably my favorite. I mean, I always say Bobby Heenan is the best, but Gary Hart is my favorite, and Gary
he doesn't get enough credit.
No, he didn't, and he was brilliant. I mean, just a brilliant wrestling mind, and to me, and now I know it's sought after because it was one printing, but to me, one of the best wrestling books ever written was Gary Hart's, and just a tremendous player in so many ways, and really, brought world class a lot of success.
Yes, world class was. I mean, I came in '82. I watched wrestling when I was a little kid, and I drifted away from it when Saturday Night Live started.
Yeah,
for some reason I found Saturday Night Live, and as the 10-year-old,
you were hooked. It was a great show. Yeah,
and then my little brother was a wrestling fan, kind of brought me back into it. One night I got home from work, and Ric Flair was on. He was going to wrestle Kerry Von Erich at Reunion Arena, 2 out of 3 falls. And it was the Saturday night before the Sunday show at Reunion Arena, and Flair was out there, and they were doing a training match. They were going to have training matches, and Kerry drew Kevin, and Flair came down. And he was talking all kinds of crap. Hey, don't do that, because he'd put his hands up, and Kerry would drop kick his hands, and it was like they were having a sparring session. And Flair said, "No, bust him in the mouth, because that's what it's going to be like with the champ." And he had like a fur coat on, and he was obnoxious, and I'm like, "Who's this guy?" And my brother's telling me about it. And then later in the evening, it's Ric Flair's turn. And he drew Brian Adias, who is the Von Erich's friend. Yeah. Went to school with Kerry. It's Kerry's best friend. And Ric Flair got in there and used him up. And Von Erich's outside the ring having a fit about it. And my brother's about to just explode. And I'm laughing at him because I'm not into this. Yeah. So I tell my little brother, I said, hey, look, if you clean my bedroom for me, tomorrow night, I'll take you to see that. Now, wow. I was lying because I knew I couldn't get out of the house without cleaning my room. So that boy went in there and my room was cleaner than it had ever been in my life. And my mom said, you're going to take him. Yeah. So we go down there and we get tickets and we're on the last row at the very top of Reunion Arena. And man, King Kong Bundy fought Harley Race.
Yeah.
I could have told you who those guys were. Ted DiBiase was on that card. Giant Baba.
Yeah.
Kabuki and the Dragon against David and Kevin for the All Asian titles.
Amazing.
But by the end of the night, after Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair went 2 out of 3 falls, Fritz whooped the referee. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
I had yelled so much. My throat, I was coughing blood. My throat, I yelled my throat out.
Oh my word.
and I was hooked.
Yeah.
So then the rematch was announced for Christmas. And I got the cage match. I got tickets and we were there for that. And then I never missed a big show again until, 87. Yeah. I was there to the end.
So world class. And I kind of do these dives. I get into a territory and I like to go through chronologically. And I grew up in New York and we had in the late 80s, World Class on television, and they would show the Legends of World Class show. So by the time I'm 4 or 5, I had seen, I'm born 1984. So I was familiar with the Kerry winning the title and all that stuff. And I love the Von Erichs from the go. Kevin was my favorite because, he would do that acrobatic but I loved Kevin and Kerry. And so world class I'm in 1985 now, and I've seen most of it, but just to rewatch it, world class and the classics never get old, but world class ages so well. You still look back at that television show. It is smartly done. It is polished. The wrestling is good. It is rough. It is tumble. And just to hear, you don't hear fan reactions like that.
No.
Unless it's a big debut now. You know what I mean? Fans were rabid. And you were at the Sportatorium. You know what I mean? What was it like to be in that atmosphere? And why do you think world class still holds up so well today?
Well, the Von Erich Freebirds, or what explode, the Von Erichs and Freebirds made that area explode.
Yeah.
The Sportatorium was just an old barn. It was hot in the summertime. It was cold in the wintertime. The best French fries, Jack's French fries. The concession stand was great. The atmosphere was great. If the bad guys were just out of control, they take them out the side door.
Yeah.
Passionate fans. I learned to sit in section D, row 5, because that would put me up against the wall underneath that American flag.
Yeah.
But here's my thinking. I could stand up on my seat and I could see the ring when everybody stood up.
Oh, good call.
And I never got hit with a beer when they started throwing.
Oh.
When the heat got out of control, there was nothing behind me. So I loved sitting over there. But I was lucky enough I saw Andre the Giant come through there. I got to see the Junkyard Dog fight Kamala. Of course, I was there through the whole Von Erich Freebird feud.
Yeah.
And to touch back on what you were saying about doing a deep dive, I started in August of 82. So I've discovered earlier 82 on Peacock. They put that on there. And I've changed my whole opinion. Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair is what got me in. David was my absolute favorite Von Erich. Favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
But Kerry Von Erich versus Harley Race is a better matchup than Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair.
The match they had at Texas Stadium, with the ring in the end zone.
Much better.
And that's a great card all the way. I love that card. But I had spoken with Kevin at one point, and he said, everybody loves the Freebirds and the Von Erichs and Gino and Chris and the Von Erichs. He said, but man, pre-82, he goes, we had some great wrestling. He goes late 70s, early 80s. He goes, Texas wrestling. I mean, he goes, I wish more people knew about that. I had sent him when he was still on Twitter. I think it was a match. It was him. I think it was him and David. And they were for Hercules Ayala, but it was for like the Middle Eastern Tag Team Championship or something. And it's great.
And it was the world heavyweight.
Yeah. He goes, I haven't seen this and he's like, those guys were great. And they, you know what I mean? And it excited him and that excited me.
Oh, yeah. Because I asked Kevin a question on Twitter one time and then he hit me in the inbox, started following me. Yeah. And then he inboxed me.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a very similar experience. Great. He was so gracious,
Oh yeah. He was just, this went on. I hated that he got off Twitter because I got to where I talked to him really regularly and never lost on me. And through my friendship with Conrad Thompson, I've met a lot of really cool wrestlers.
Yeah.
And friends, and friends with some pretty big stars too.
Oh, that's awesome.
But every time that Kevin Von Erich would reach out to talk to me was a pinch me moment.
Yeah, same. I had the opportunity, same thing. I wrote him a message on Twitter, and again inboxed and said, "Hey man, thank you." And so I just took a shot. I was like, "Hey man, like, would it be possible to talk to you?" Yeah. He goes, "Oh yeah," like, you know what I mean? And he called and spent about 30 minutes on the phone, and and just answered any question or just talked about whatever. And and I remember him saying, how could you not like somebody who likes you? And he goes, I wish I could call everybody, but happy to see, what he's doing. And after living through so much and, seeing him and his kids and doing what they're doing in Hawaii and living a good life and, seeing that the Von Erich story is not the tragic ending that people think it is, that it is a good life, and just really happy to see that.
Yeah, he's such a kind man.
Yeah, he really is. And so you look, right? We look and we hear all the time about, I know recently you had gotten that, the David Von Erich, the trunks. You have that beautiful display.
I wish I could get the computer around so you could see it on the wall here.
But folks, again, it's more reason to follow Dave on social media. You'll see some really great memorabilia photos. But it's off talk about David Von Erich, the uncrowned world's heavyweight champion. And it's funny because I've gone back and forth with this in the sense of realistically, what would a David Von Erich title reign had looked like in 1984, when he was going to win. So I want to get it straight from somebody who was there. Dave Miller, if David Von Erich wins the title May 6, 84, he goes on to be the world champion. What do you think a David Von Erich world title reign looks like at that point?
I think it's highly successful because David could work heel just as good as he could babyface. And I don't know if you ever looked at David and thought he was a babyface. David was a man that could whip your ass.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be pretty. He could brawl with you. Yeah. He wasn't going to do a whole bunch of high flying. he was going to fight you and you were going to know you were in a fight.
Yeah.
And you think about it, if he would have took over Ric Flair's schedule and did that run through Florida, he would have definitely been a heel against Mike Rotundo.
Yeah.
And probably a heel against superstar Billy Graham at the time.
Yeah.
He was extremely popular in Japan.
Yeah.
I don't think that it would have been a short reign. I think he probably at least would have took it all the way to Starrcade.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And it's so cool to hear like the different opinions on what that reign would have been, you know. And again, amongst the changing landscape in wrestling, but I forget who it was, somebody saying to me, and we were talking about this, because I always love to ask that question, talking about, yeah, like you could see, you know, David and Flair, Starrcade 84, you know,
definitely. It was a marquee matchup.
Yeah, exactly. It's a made matchup. Yep. I love that. I
mean, everybody thinks
like oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks Kerry and Flair was the marquee draw, because I mean, Bill Watts took it around the horn.
Yeah,
Kerry didn't work for Mid-South, but he booked Kerry to come in, because I have a friend that told me that he saw Kerry versus Flair in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was around the horn for Bill Watts, but David in Missouri. I mean, they didn't tell us in Texas, but David was winning and losing the Missouri title to Ric Flair.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in the thick of it up there.
Oh, yeah.
When Harley was champion.
Yeah. And again, you know, and you look at it, I mean, all three brothers holding that Missouri State title. You know, there's a lot of great history with them outside of Texas. But yeah, David was well-traveled, you know, and again, did the heel run in Florida, which was fantastic. You know, with Dory Funk Jr. But you know, a lot of people don't know that David Von Erich wrestled Barry Windham and Dusty Rhodes and these guys, you know, and it's great stuff.
I got an interesting side note about David Von Erich's heel work in Florida. I recently saw a match where Dory Funk and David Von Erich won the tag belts from the Briscoe brothers. Not today's Briscoe brothers kids. I'm talking about Jack and Jerry Briscoe.
We're talking Jack and Jerry.
Well, Dory had rolled up one of the Briscoes, and David stuck his foot through the rope and put it on Dory's butt and gave it to give him leverage. And I mentioned that to Gerald Briscoe. And I tweeted it, and Gerald Briscoe responded to it, because it was like, why would nobody not? This finish is so excellent. You never see it. And then I don't know if you paid attention to WWE. They used that finish a couple times.
Okay, that's awesome.
I mean, it happened like they did it, and I was like, no, there's no way Gerald Briscoe didn't tweet that, and they didn't see that and do that finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
And then they did it again, and then they overdid it. But
yeah, of course. Well, that's.
But I thought that was so cool. Not only did Mr. And I'd ask him about it on ad-free shows. He does a Q&A. He does a Q&A every other Monday.
Oh, with
the comedian Taylor Williamson.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we ask, and he just takes questions, and it's a good time. And so I talked to him. I got to talk to him about that as well. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You know, it's funny you mentioned that. There is this great, every now and again on Wrestle Weekly, I kind of like to put like these snarky kind of things out there. And there's this great picture. It's Dory with the, I think it's the All Japan International, you know, championship. And David's kind of looking over his shoulder with like this smirk on his face. And so I put the caption up that says, "Hey, my dad could whip your dad's ass." And I was, you know, captioning this photo, you know, but little things like that are great. But, and like you said, too, we were talking about before, right? Storytelling, wrestling is about those nuances, those little things that make sense, you know, and it's, to me, that's the beauty of what wrestling is and why it's so enjoyable is those subtle nods to things. You got to pay attention to what's going on. It's not just a trading of holds. You know, there was a story being woven in and out, you know, and somebody was talking about this the other day, you know, when I saw this, I want to say it was online somewhere, and talking about how when Dusty lost the title for Ric Flair's first reign, and he had the match in Florida where the assassin really worked over his leg, you know, and then he goes to Kansas City, right? He's wrestling Flair and the leg gives out, you know, it was this storytelling that it was like, now it sets up this automatic, you know, this Dusty's got to get the assassin. Flair beat him because the leg gave out, you know, and it's just fantastic, you know, that so much can come from one little thing like that.
Yeah, well, look at Malachi Black.
Yeah.
He's still selling an eye injury that happened in a different company.
Yeah. Yeah. And the great thing is, right, and he has said, right, the more powerful his character gets, the worse his eye gets, you know, and it's a great piece of storytelling. You know,
it's continuity.
Yeah, like, right, you know. I mean, who doesn't, you know, you watch a movie, right? You expect continuity. You see a series, you want continuity. Why not in wrestling, you know? And no disrespect to WWE, but this was like the old WCW, right? They'd start a story, it would have no clear end in sight, but they'd string it along and then it's gone. And they pretend it didn't happen. You know, it's revisionist history for sure. You know?
Drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Drives me absolutely crazy.
I believe it, man. I believe it.
I was told when I became a referee, I couldn't never be a wrestling fan again. And there's a lot of truth to that, but I mean, nothing's ever going to kill my fandom, but
yeah. But, so Dave, for the fans out there that follow, you know, your collection and what you're doing, so we know you're getting back in the ring. Do you have your eye on anything particular that you're going to add to your collection? Any pieces, any belts that you're particularly scoping out right now that you're saying, oh, this is the next golden goose here?
You know, I'm trying to chase wrestling programs right now.
Okay.
I want the one from Reunion Arena, Star Wars of '82. Okay. My first time that I went, that's awesome. That's a hard one to find.
Oh yeah.
I know a guy that has it. He won't come off of it.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Lance Peterson, right, SMU heavyweight. He's a world-class historian.
Oh, Lance Peterson. Yeah. Lance we had Lance on our first season.
Yeah, Lance has it.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
He's an incredible historian. I mean, and the photos he has.
Oh, yes.
You know, the photos he's taken over time. But yeah, just a really, really great guy. We love Lance, you know.
But I'll tell you, after you get David Von Erich's ring used trunks.
Yeah. Like, what's going to top that, you know?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got the Ric Flair Legacy belt that WWE had briefly. I was able to get one because they pulled them out. They put them up for sale, and then the next day, the Plane Ride from Hell came out.
And that was it. They pulled
everything got pulled, but I got one, and it came with the robe, a replica of his retirement robe. And
oh, that's great.
It is great because I've actually worn Ric Flair robes, and
I've seen photos,
and that one weighs 5 pounds, and it feels like it's heavier than 5 pounds. And I mean, I put on one of the costume robes at Toys R Us, and it's barely more than a bathrobe.
Yeah.
But this replica robe they sent with this belt is as close to the real thing. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, they do a really, really nice job with their merchandise and some of the things they come up, those legacy belts. Some of them are ugly as sin, but some of them are really, really great. The Flair one looked excellent. I know the Macho Man one too really caught my eye. I thought that was a great one too. But yeah, you know, you have these moments, right? These wrestlers, these memories that we make. And to me, that's the beauty of wrestling fandom. Like what I've loved, and this is what Scotty and I talk about all the time, what I've loved about collectors like you and some of our really, really great friends online is the passion and the reason why you collect, you know, that it means something to you. It's not about who has the most toys, you know, but it's about, man, these mean something to me. There's a sentimental type value. And you know, we're big on the magazines, you know, and, you know, I can remember going to the store as a kid and 7, 8 magazines, you know what I mean? There was this little deli, you know, I had this huge magazine rack, you know, and boom, we were picking out, you know, and again, so seeing, like I said, your love for the belts, all the different kind of unique things, but the photos that you have that go along with them, the figures and everything. I love being able to look at your collection and tell what you're passionate about. Not, oh, I just collect this to make this great looking room. And you know what I mean? Like there's thought put into it. It's just really, really incredible. My buddy, you know, Mike Parker with the Pro Wrestling Mini Museum, you know, another guy who just got some great stuff, you know, and it's cool to see what he's passionate about too. But Dave, you know, you've really done an excellent job. And it's really, really cool to see what you have going.
Thank you. I just like to, everything's themed. I mean, over here's the World Class wall.
Yeah.
Back here's the Mid-South wall.
Yeah.
Over here's the Ric Flair wall.
Yeah.
Then I've got like an NWA corner.
Yeah.
I've got my referee stuff, and I've got my lab coat from when I got to actually manage a tag team.
I've seen those photos. I've seen those.
Dr. Philip D. Payne, Phil D. Payne.
I love it.
and the tag team was the Medics.
Yeah. That's great.
And they wore masks because they took an oath to do no harm. So they cover their faces and do harm. And they cash in because they heal you during the day and they break you at night. So it's a vicious cycle. I mean,
yeah.
Managing the Medics was absolutely the most fun because I love heel heat. And
that's awesome.
And we worked a show in Garland, Texas one time and Skandar Akbar was there. It was one of his shows, and he gave me a compliment when I came through the curtain. So
that's awesome.
I mean, that was just, I'll never forget that. But also,
that's worth its weight in gold.
My daughter was our nurse.
It was a family affair.
My legit daughter, we needed a nurse, so I got my daughter to do it, and we called her Ophelia Payne. but the spot is that the wrestler was one of the medics was gonna put the guy through the ropes, and the referee was distracted. And she's supposed to slap him. Well, she does one of these little, and just barely. It was horrible. So I covered it and I shoved her and I said, "That's not how you do it." And I slapped the piss out of this guy. Karrion Arcane. We were wrestling a tag team called Genesis. Karrion Arcane and Christopher Hayden. And I slapped the piss out of him. And this lady on the front row got hot because how I was talking to my daughter. And she was just in my ear. And I finally turned around and I said, "Look, lady, I don't go to your job and interrupt you while you're yelling scattered, smothered, covered, and chunked. You don't come in here and tell me how to do my job." And I mean, they were having to hold her back. She wanted to kill me.
Oh, that's great.
And then, of course, as the match goes on, we win, we cheat, but I end up being in the ring with the guys we screwed while my team's on the outside, and I get double teamed and beat up and left and clotheslined and all over, and I had to be carried out, and the crowd was crazy for it. And there's just not a better feeling than when they're bought in.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that's cool.
So I got that up there, and then my WWF corner, just the old Attitude Era belts and stuff. And then I don't have a lot of the current stuff in here. I've got a Charlotte Flair wall.
I've seen, and
that's
awesome.
And it's not because she's Rick's daughter.
Yeah.
It's because I truly believe in the ring, Charlotte Flair is probably the best wrestler in the world today. Not the best women's wrestler in the world today.
Best wrestler.
Charlotte Flair is probably the best performer in the ring. I don't think she's matched. And I mean, you can bet she's just incredible. I mean, I'm locked in. I'm invested. At WrestleMania, when she wrestled Asuka.
Oh, it's a great match.
I fully expected Asuka to win that match because of the streak.
Yeah.
And when Asuka tapped, I came out of my chair and lost my mind. And it's the first time I've acted that way at a wrestling match since Kerry Von Erich won the championship in 1984.
Wow. That's really cool. That is, and again, folks, is that not what it's all about? Is that not what wrestling is supposed to make you do? She is a one-of-a-kind talent, an incredible match, an incredible career, and she's still so young, so I think there's going to be a lot more from her. But folks, we want to thank you for joining us here tonight. Pondwater Dave, the man, a great conversation, returning to the ring to referee. And who knows, maybe Philip D. Payne comes back one day. Maybe he makes another appearance.
I would love it, but I don't see it happening. I'm booked in January, Fountain Hill, Arkansas, for Bayou Independent Wrestling. January and February, we're going to do Natchez, Mississippi. And we'll be back in Brookhaven, Mississippi in March. We're going to West Monroe. I'm going to be with Bayou Independent Wrestling every month for the year. I'm hopefully I can work for some other promotions. But if I don't do anybody Bayou Independent, I'll be okay with that.
That's awesome.
March 31st in Fort Worth, Texas, for the Southern Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm going to be inducted to the Southern Wrestling Hall of Fame. Oh,
that's great. Congratulations.
It's going to be at the Wrigley Theater in Fort Worth, Texas. That was where the NWA Parade of Champions was the last time WrestleMania was in the area.
That's awesome.
And I believe the promoter's trying to put an event together for that night. I think he's going to call it Old School Hustle.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll go out on a limb to say that if he has matches that night, that his Hall of Fame referee is going to be in there calling the match.
That's awesome.
So that's what I'm hoping for. That's so cool.
Well, folks, March 31st, if you're in the Fort Worth area, and again, we'll give you more information as this is happening. But again, go see it. You're not going to want to miss it. Great wrestling. Congratulations to Dave. Well-deserved. Again, not just a great collector, a great guy. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. We can't wait to see you for another one. So stay tuned. See us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Wrestler Weekly. Follow Dave at Pondwater Dave. And we look forward to seeing you at the matches.
Thank you.